Melodrama of the moment is not the way to go. In fact, that will end up further burdening the American taxpayer, who's already fed up with a political system that sometimes makes them feel like second-class citizens. I know, Mr. President, you will not let them down. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction is immigration attorney Michael Wilds, who's the author of the new book, Safe Haven in America, Battles to Open the Golden Door. Our friend Alan Dershowitz wrote the foreword to it. And Dinesh D'Souza, a filmmaker whose new movie, Death of a Nation, is in theaters on August 3rd. We're all looking forward to that. His accompanying book comes out on the same day. All right, guys, a lot to unpack here. Dinesh, let's start with you. This is the kind of story that I think Republicans always have a hard time with, because nobody likes to see a child crying because he or she misses his mother or his father. It tugs at everybody's heartstrings. Mine, I'm a mom, you're a dad. It's hard stuff to see. But this problem was brought on by politicians who refused to do the work they were supposed to do. And now the American people, as usual, are supposed to pick up the tab. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, I think on the one hand, there is grief, but there is also the manipulation of grief, the politics of, you could call it, moist eyes. And this isn't just the Democratic Party, it's also the media which frames these images. And so it's not that the Republicans are insensitive. The Republicans are scared of being portrayed as insensitive. And the Democrats are using that charge, even though at heart they know it's fake. And what I mean by that is that, look, we live in a Hobbesian world in which a lot of these problems, gang violence, domestic violence, these are epidemic, particularly, you know, the favelas in Brazil, the slums of Bombay, all over China. These are global problems. America has never taken the position that our doors are open worldwide to anybody who is suffering from these problems. We create very carefully carved out exceptions for example, political persecution, or as you said earlier, religious persecution. And that's it. But the Democrats are using the fact that they're able to dramatize these problems on our border to create a kind of emotional stampede. And then Republicans feel politically defensive, run for the exits in the kind of familiar invertebrate fashion.
Well, you got this Kevin Yoder congressman. I don't know him from Adam, but he brings the story of his mother was a social worker. Well, that's interesting, and I'm glad she was a social worker, but that has nothing to do with our U.S. immigration policy. And for some reason, like Donald Trump, I guess, had him on Air Force One last week. He's like, he's a great guy. He's giving me $5 billion for the wall. But $5 billion for the wall is not going to matter if we have tens of millions of people all across the country. We have 45 countries, Michael Wilds, where domestic abuse is generally not recognized as a crime. 45 countries. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Qatar, Haiti, goes on and on and on, where women do not get the same rights as women here in the United States and other developed countries against men who abuse them. So does that mean all of them can apply under Kevin Yoder's, David Price's new idea about asylum? That's madness.
Thank you, Laura, for having me on. Forgive my personal attire. I'm running for mayor in New Jersey, and there was an event in my community. I came over here to join you. Look, I'm a law professor, and I'm adjunct at a law school. Political asylum is actually sacred law. And historically, domestic violence has not yielded itself for a long time as a basis for political asylum. There's this old battle cry between persecution and prosecution. If you're being persecuted, you apply for asylum at our door. If you're in fear of prosecution or you have issues with your home country, it's not America's business, and we have economic challenges for our own citizenry. So domestic violence has less of a case. But gang violence is a different predicate for asylum, because there you have countries that enable narcos and all the drug traffickers, and they take no action. And Muslim countries throughout the world where women are being abused in relationships where the government codifies it under Sharia law and so forth. So the real question is, should America's golden doors be slammed shut when there are people that are mercifully trying to protect themselves?
Well, I do know this, David. I do know we have Iraqi Christians, Syrian Christians, People throughout the Middle East who've been waiting for years. The classic case of ethnic cleansing, religious cleansing, taking place in Central African Republic, Sudan, and throughout the Middle East. And we've taken in, I mean, Dinesh, you might know better, I mean, very few. And yet, just because you show up at our southern border and, you know, NBC is there to cover your, you know, the sad story, that suddenly America has to say, okay, we're going to change our whole system, and we're going to throw open the door to every criminal victim in the world. And let me just read this, Dinesh. I want you to react. Credible fear applications since 2007, 5,171 applications for credible fear asylum requests. Okay, 2016, 91,786, an increase of 1,675%. Think there's any fraud there, Dinesh?
Well, you know, I'd like to step back for a moment and look at this a slightly different way. I mean, the founders looked at America as a kind of moral community, a group of people who have a common set of values and a common destiny, almost in some senses like an extended family. Now, if someone came banging on your door and said, listen, I'm in fear because I am being chased by a gang, I would submit that the ordinary person would be a little skeptical before giving them, quote, asylum, before saying, come on in. You can move right in because you have a credible fear, and so it's now become our responsibility. Most people would say, wait a minute, I have a direct obligation to my own. As for others who are coming in from the outside, I'm sympathetic, but on the other hand, it's not necessarily my problem. At the very least, our democratic system has to go through the legislative process to decide what we do with such people. So ultimately, the decision is with Congress, but this idea that somehow because the media dramatizes a hard luck story, that the idea that somehow the Republicans have to run for cover, this is just, in a sense, political theater.
Laura, if
Michael,
I may.
Michael, we have a 311,000 applicant backlog as of January of this year. We have an overall backlog of 700,000 in general immigration applications in our immigration courts. Jeff Sessions said last month, the month before, we're trying to make progress, but we can't keep up with this.
Well,
at some point, it swamps the whole system, costs a huge amount of money that most people watching the show tonight are like, I don't want to pay for this. We're out of money here. Go, you can close it out.
Thank you. 2 points. First, we all agree, and with the gentleman that's speaking also, that Congress should set the policy. We don't want the Attorney General or the cops, the ICE agents, to be executing on asylum law. That should be in the courts. And certainly they should have set up enough judges to adjudicate these cases so you don't have children without representation and you don't have families being separated. The real issue here is, Laura, a few weeks ago, you said if the Republicans aren't going to work with the Democrats, then do nothing. Here they're beginning to work with each other. You're just not liking what they're doing. Well, guess what? Congress, it's their job. We all agree, all three of us, that they have to fix this. And
why did they have no vote on this then, Mike? Why no vote? Why are they running out of town to their August recess? They did this little sneak vote, then they run out of town. No one comes. We called all these Democrats today. None of them would come on this show, nor would Congressman Yoder.
I've always been disappointed on members of Congress.
They're all afraid. They don't want to defend
this. Yeah, because they feel they're never going to get reelected if they're strong on immigration. They feel they'll never get reelected.
Yeah,
so,
they're running home to vacation or to campaign,
and why
but they do not want to defend this. We're out of time, guys. Out of time. We'll do a longer segment. Michael Cohen, by the way, is reportedly claiming tonight that Donald Trump knew of that infamous 2016